Here are 3 tips to improve your world building in Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, my first tip, and this is something I came up with myself. I really liked it when I said this out loud for the first time, and I was like, yes, I need to remember that. And it is to treat your world like it's a character, or maybe even like it's characters. Now, what do I mean by that? If you know anything about writing, but also if you play D&D, you'll probably know this. You want to give characters motivations. You want to give them something they want or something they need, something they're striving towards, something that they want to achieve. And your world should be similar. Obviously, your world itself cannot be striving towards a specific goal, but people in your world will be. Factions will be created based on specific things that happen. I have this really dark example that I like to use. If, for example, you have a world where people become magical through their blood, magic is in their blood. Something that I came up with that could happen in this world is that people start harvesting this magic blood. So people get kidnapped, people get stolen away, and then their blood is taken from them in all sorts of cruel ways, because this blood can create magic for people. It can give people access to magic. So it's cause and effect, okay? And you need to treat your whole world like this. And obviously individuality exists in every single world, and that's not something to worry about when you're world building. But what you do want to be focusing on is cause and effect. It's so important when you're creating a world that things happen, and in return other things happen. And that may sound a bit silly, but your world is a living, moving thing that's constantly reacting and going back and going forth. People will always be trying to exploit the world for what it is, how they exist, and why they exist. So when you create a world, and for example, like I said, people's blood gives them magic, but only specific people, how would this influence the rest of the world? The rest of the people that don't have magic blood, how does this influence the people that do have magic blood? And from there you kind of start spreading out all these little like domino pieces that just fall into place and fall over especially. But what's also important in that is that a world needs to be dynamic. So a world needs to be able to grow, it needs to be able to change. A world won't be static. So if you're world building and you want to include loads of history, make sure that things change throughout history, people's perceptions on things. If magic blood exists and only specific people got that magic, maybe 3,000 years ago the people with magic blood were, you know, worshipped like gods, but maybe now regular people fear the people with magic blood, or maybe they imprison them, or maybe they see them as worse, as less than human, because some sort of like French Revolution happened. So, you know, play around with that. Give your story sort of, if your world has a main concept, main idea behind kind of what makes your world special, keep exploring what would happen and why it would happen. Number 2, and now this is going to sound like I'm contradicting myself, but number 2 is to start small. For Dungeons and Dragons, it's so easy. I mean, for any world building, I love world building. I mean, that's kind of why I created this channel. I love D&D, I love world building, and I love warlocks. That's why it's in the name. But it's so easy to start majestic and big, and these gods created this planet, and that's why this all happened. Great stuff. But for a D&D campaign, you need to have your settings right, okay? Especially if this is your first campaign, focus on a small settlement, a town or a small city, because this is probably where you'll be spending most of your time. Most of the campaign, like the first year, for example, will be mainly set there. So focus more on fleshing that out instead of, you know, focusing on all these massive things. The more you explore this smaller city, the more you also explore kind of bigger themes throughout the world and why things are the way they are in this city. And that's the thing, you don't have to have everything ready. Just be ready to adapt to what happens in the story. Make sure you know your stuff about your own world. That is of course important, but also, you know, be open. And this is kind of flowing into my next point, be open to retcon things, for example. And this is really difficult because if you spend so much time on creating this beautiful thing that you're really proud of, and you start caring about it, believe me, I know you start caring about it. But at the end of the day, you want to do what's best for the story and for your campaign. As long as your players don't know, it's not canon. I think what's really important is to explore the world with your players together. You want to have your baseline world, okay? You want to have the baseline down, and you want to have this sort of sandbox for people to explore. Even if you run a very linear campaign, even if you know, railroad slightly, that's fine, but your world has to be this sort of sandbox, okay, for them. They'll be exploring the world, but you have to be exploring it with them. their characters will be going on all sorts of journeys, okay? And they'll be undergoing all sorts of trauma and all sorts of adventures. And it's important to create a world where their characters fit. And obviously you want to discuss beforehand, right? If you have players you want to be playing with, if you have specific people in mind, or if you're looking for people, if you have a world, obviously you'll tell your players beforehand, like, hey, this is the type of story I want to do, this type of campaign I want to do, create a character that fits here. True, but then still try and let your players sort of guide the direction the world is going in. Try and incorporate your players' backstories into factions that may exist in your world, you know? And I'm not saying let your players create whole new, you know, worlds and whole new areas of on your planets and stuff, but, you know, your players should have some sort of impact on the world. If not in their backstories, then in the current campaign. If not in the current campaign, then in the backstories. Probably both. You want to include both. Make sure that the players are important. And this is maybe not so much about the world building thing, but it's specifically about running a D&D campaign. But it is just really important, I think, to make your D&D players, your party, feel important. Because obviously, at the end of the day, like, in a real story, some random people coming together randomly wouldn't be important. But this is D&D. We all want to feel important. We all want to have like a moment in the spotlight. So ensure that no matter how rich or shallow their backstories are, ensure that they'll be woven in to your world. Now, I know some of this has not been the most concrete advice and more just a general feeling of try and follow these things in your world. But this final one I think helped me a lot when I struggle because, you know, writer's block, general just lack of creativity, general lack of motivation, everything, it all happens, don't get me wrong. What I really like to do and what I encourage every single person to do is to steal everything. And I don't mean like go around and steal books. I mean like just take things from certain worlds that you like. If there are aspects from stories or books or films, just take it. I'm currently working on creating a campaign about the Dark Brotherhood from Skyrim because it's fine to do so. And it's the same thing with worlds, because world building is hard. It's not something you can just kind of pick up, okay? And this is, you know, I think I suck at world building. I love world building, but at the end of the day, I probably suck. There's a reason I'm a YouTuber with like 150 subscribers and not a world-renowned novelist, you know? At the end of the day, all of us running D&D campaigns, 99.9%, we suck at world building. And that's fine, we don't need to be good. But it makes it a lot easier if you open yourself up to stealing from worlds that are amazing and that you love. I'm not saying this is something you have to do. It's just something I would recommend because it makes things a lot easier for yourself. Cool, that's the end of the video. I know this was a bit of a weird one. I'm working on some bigger videos and I still wanted to keep up the schedule of 2 videos a week. So this was a bit of a quick sort of weird mix of things that I've been thinking about. I've been doing a lot of world building myself lately for my own campaigns. I'm not sponsored, I wish, but I've been using World Anvil lately. And it's really fun because you can create a sort of like wiki for your own D&D campaign. And that's really fun. I've been sending that to my players. And every time I'm exposing some new information, every time people ask about a certain book, if they want to find, you know, if they're in a library and they want to find this book on a specific like god or character they've heard about, then I can put it up on the wiki. And that's been really fun because it sort of adds to the atmosphere. That's something I would recommend looking into. Again, I'm not sponsored, but it is just something I've enjoyed doing. There's a free version. The free version is very limited, I think. If you have some money left over, I would recommend subscribing. But it is great. It's really fun. And yeah, I would recommend it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, ring the bell, all those good things. Subscribe to my Patreon if you'd like. I have a Patreon, but there's nothing on my Patreon. So there's that. I don't have any time. I have a full-time job and I try to do this as much as possible. So yeah. But yeah, if you want to give me money, then yeah, I'm not going to complain. So yeah, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. Let me know in the comments how terrible my advice was, and also let me know Let's see. Your favorite class, so I can roast you about how wrong you probably are. So yeah, I hope you have a nice day. I hope you sleep well tonight, and until the next time. Bye bye.